Alright, so here it is, my Canon EOS R5 photography review. So yeah, this video is just about photography, but there will be a second video about video too. I decided to split things up because this camera is a hybrid camera and a lot of people want to know more about photography while some other people want to know more about video. So yeah, if you're interested in videography, stay tuned for upcoming videos, but now let's get started. Of course, in this video I'm using my own full production model of the EOS R5 and I bought it right after the announcement, and this is exactly what you would get if you buy the R5 today. All in all, the EOS R5 is Canon's newest high-end full-frame mirrorless camera with an incredible 45 megapixel sensor, the new built-in stabilization, shooting modes up to 20 FPS, 8K RAW video and a dual card slot for one SD and one CF Express card. But is this camera actually good for photography? In this video we will talk about that, and as always this is of course all about a real-world test and my experience with this camera. So first let's talk about the design. The overall design of the R5 and the EOS R is really similar, but Canon made a few changes that I really like. While the EOS R has a touch bar on the backside, a smaller LCD screen and a pad, the EOS R5 has a joystick, a rear wheel, some improved buttons to make it easier to use them, and they switched a few buttons and input positions. For example, the zoom button is now right here, and they have switched the microphone input to the top, so it's easier to use a flip out screen. In my opinion, the overall button layout is way better on the R5 because it makes the overall handling of the R5 way easier. And exactly that is what you want as a photographer. Everything needs to be easy to use so you don't have to think too much about how to actually use a camera. Another great aspect is that you can still decide to change the functions of buttons and switches to make your own workflow as easy as possible. For example, the control ring of my RF glass can be used to set up the ISO, the shutter speed is on this wheel, and my aperture can be changed using this one right here. So in the end I simply don't have to use a touchscreen a lot while shooting, because if I need to make some adjustments I can do that while taking pictures. So especially if you're in a hurry at events, for example, this makes it way easier to get the best results in all kind of situations. But there are some more improvements we need to talk about, and the first one is all about memory cards. If you buy the EOS R you can only put one SD card into this camera. For a lot of people that was a huge downside, but I need to say that I didn't had any problems at all over the last year. But of course I totally understand that today the standard is simply a dual card slot. And the Canon EOS R has now finally a dual card slot. But here it's not a simple dual SD card slot, it's a dual card slot. So you can use one SD card and one CF Express card. And you need that, for example, if you want to record some high resolution video. Of course CF Express cards aren't cheap, so you need to keep that in your mind, but you can still use the R5 with just one single SD card if you don't want to buy a CF Express card right now. But on the other hand, CF Express cards are really fast and they can be used to get access to stuff like 8K, so I highly recommend to buy one if you use the R5. Next, let's quickly talk about the viewfinder. And here the EOS R5 got a EVF with a better resolution of 5.76 million dots, while the EOS R uses 3.69 million dots. So especially if you use the EVF a lot, this might be something you should care about. Another aspect we need to talk about is the EF to RF adapter. In case if you don't know that, if you use a RF mount camera, there's an official adapter from Canon that you can use to use your old EF lenses like the 70-200 2.8 IS2 with your R mount system. So especially if you upgrade to the RF mount from the EF mount, this is extremely helpful because you don't have to buy all kind of lenses again just because of the new mount. And exactly that's why I really like this adapter, because only a few people can afford a complete set of new RF lenses when they make the switch to the new mount. But the downside is that Canon decided to not include the adapter in the box of the R5. In contrast to that, if you would buy the EOS R, you would get a free adapter. So that's something I don't really understand, but okay. Currently in Germany there's a cashback thing going on for all the people who bought the R5 and R6, so you can still get a free adapter. So what I can recommend is to check out your local Canon website if there's something like this in your region, because I highly recommend to have such an adapter in your inventory, because yeah, it makes it way easier and cheaper to slowly build up your gear. But now let's switch to the file output menu, and here you can choose between RAW files and compressed RAW files, both with a resolution of 8192 by 5464, and of course all kind of JPEG outputs. In case of aspect ratios, you can choose between full, a 1.6 crop mode, 1:1, 4:3 and 16:9 options. So yeah, all in all I need to say that the overall design and handling of the R5 is absolutely amazing. It's comfortable, easy to use, you can find everything in the menu really fast, so even for Canon starters it's not a problem to set up the camera. So, but what's about working with the R5? Well, I simply need to say that I love the overall workflow using the R5. And first let's talk about the noise. The camera doesn't make a lot of noise, so especially if you're a photographer who needs to be quiet, for example, you won't have any problems. I need to say that it surprised me a lot how they managed to reduce the overall shutter loudness, so if you don't want to get a lot of attention while taking photos, this is the way to go. And on top, this camera can take photos super fast with up to 20 FPS. I mean, you just need to have a look at this example for the 12 FPS mode. And just to show you something, what way we can do this here. Let's switch to, where is it? The high-speed continuous mode. And now let's see. Let's give the focus. So yeah, this is actually a big improvement for the Canon R cameras. Sometimes you just want to get started to press the shutter button and the R5 already took a couple of pictures. And especially if you need to capture some special moments like events or weddings, this camera will make your overall workflow way easier, and you definitely won't miss any of these special moments because your camera is actually fast enough. Next, of course, we need to talk about the autofocus, and in my opinion the autofocus of the EOS R was great and I don't had any problems using the EOS R, but the one from the R5 is top notch and fast. For these recorded photo sessions I mostly used the single dot focus point to make it easier for me to set up the focus while recording the footage, and yeah, as soon as I selected the area the focus was on point. But if you use adapted EF lenses it can happen that the focus is a little bit slower, but this totally depends on the lens that you use. But all in all I simply don't had any problems using all kind of lenses with the EOS R5. Canon also improved the eye autofocus, and that's a major update if you compare it to the EOS R or RP. The overall tracking is way better, and with the new technology it can track even animals like dogs, cats and birds way easier, and you can decide what kind of main element is in front of the camera to get even better results. In addition to that, Canon now offers Ibis, which is extremely helpful to get better results even if you use slower shutter speed options. Especially if you use the lens IS and the Ibis, you will notice a big difference to the EOS R, and that is way easier to take the photo. So in the end I need to say that the overall experience is way better if you use the R5, and I simply don't want to miss all these features anymore. That doesn't mean that the EOS R is a bad camera, but if you're looking for a high-end photography camera the R5 is the way to go. But now let's talk about editing a little bit, and before we get into that I need to mention that there's currently a big downside when you use Lightroom to edit your footage. A few people already know that, but I just need to mention it right here. If you want to edit your R5 pictures in Lightroom you currently can't import these files directly from your SD or CF Express card, and the reason is that currently Adobe simply don't support these new files. But what they did was to update their DNG converter, so you can use this additional app to convert your Canon RAW files into DNG files, and then you can import these new files into Lightroom. That's a little bit annoying because you have to use another app to get your work done, but at least they made it possible that I can do something with all these files right now. So yeah, I really hope that Adobe will fix that really soon, but I simply need to mention that, so please keep that in your mind when you buy the EOS R5. But now let's talk about the overall editing experience, and here I need to say that I really like the overall footage of the R5. Especially if you upgrade from the EOS R, you already know the overall process using these files, and I simply need to say that I don't have any problems to edit my R5 RAW pictures at all. It isn't a problem to get the results that I want to have using the R5 system, and especially if you use RF glass the image quality is top notch. On top the 45 megapixels are awesome to zoom all the way in if you need some more details, so there's actually plenty of room to get the perfect composition out of your pictures in the post-production. So yeah, of course currently a lot of people are talking about some issues in the video area of the R5, but especially if you do some photography client work the R5 is a perfect camera to deliver some high-end content. And yes, simply there isn't a lot to complain about if you are a photographer. The overall camera body is absolutely amazing. The 45 megapixel sensor is a perfect upgrade if you're looking for all these details. The improved focus system is exactly what you need, especially if you want to have a great IF for faster shootings, and in combination with the new Ibis the overall shooting experience is just way better. So in the end the overall picture quality of the R5 is in my opinion just incredible. I would say the Canon EOS R5 is actually a really good camera for photography, and yeah, especially if you're a professional photographer this camera can pay itself off, and it makes the overall workflow way easier. And yeah, exactly that is why I would recommend to go into your local camera store to check out the R5. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you're new don't forget to smash that subscribe button to stay updated for upcoming videos, and I'll see you in the next video.